Chosen one, God said move. You can't stay where you are anymore. Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a sacred moment in life when silence speaks louder than noise, when comfort begins to feel like confinement, and when the familiar no longer feels safe, but suffocating. This moment does not arrive with chaos or warning signs written in the sky. It arrives quietly, deeply, and personally. It arrives as an inner knowing, a holy unease, a divine whisper that says, "You cannot remain here." This message is not for everyone. It is for the chosen ones, the individuals marked by God not for ease but for purpose, those who are called to move when others settle, to rise when others relax, and to obey when others hesitate. If you are listening to this and feel an unexplainable restlessness stirring within you, understand this. It is not confusion and it is not fear. It is God preparing you for transition. Ladies and gentlemen, growth always demands movement. Nothing that lives is permitted to remain still forever. Rivers that stop flowing become stagnant. Seeds that never leave the ground never become trees. And people who refuse to move when God says move remain trapped in places they have already outgrown. Many are praying for change while resisting motion. They want new outcomes while clinging to old locations. But heaven operates by a different law. Obedience precedes revelation. There are seasons when God blesses you by allowing you to stay, and there are seasons when He blesses you by commanding you to leave. The tragedy is not in leaving too early, it is in staying too long. Staying when the lesson has already been learned. Staying when the environment can no longer sustain your calling. Staying when God has already shifted His presence forward, waiting for you to follow. Ladies and gentlemen, the discomfort you feel is not a sign that something is wrong, it is proof that something is ending. God uses discomfort as a divine alarm to awaken you from spiritual sleep. When He is ready to elevate you, He first disrupts your sense of security, not to harm you, but to prevent you from building a permanent home in a temporary place. This message is for those who sense that doors are closing without explanation, relationships are changing without conflict, and opportunities are drying up without warning. These are not losses, they are instructions. God is reducing your attachment to what is familiar so that you can fully receive what is next. You cannot carry old weights into new seasons. Ladies and gentlemen, today's message is a call to courage, faith, and obedience. It is a reminder that God does not guide you by sight, but by trust. He does not require you to see the full path, only to take the next step. And that step begins with movement. Because when God says move, remaining still is no longer an option. Stay where you are anymore. Divine discomfort does not arrive to destroy you, it arrives to alert you. It is not a curse, not a setback, not a sign that God has withdrawn His hand from your life. It is a signal, a holy notification that the version of you that was formed in this season has reached its limit. What once fit now feels tight. What once felt safe now feels heavy. What once energized you now drains you. This is not coincidence. This is God speaking through sensation. Chosen one, comfort is never God's highest priority. Growth is. And growth always begins with disturbance. If God allowed you to remain endlessly comfortable, you would never discover what you are truly capable of becoming. So He introduces unease not as punishment, but as preparation. He allows dissatisfaction to rise within you so you will stop settling for environments that can no longer contain your assignment. Understand this clearly. God does not punish the chosen with discomfort, He trains them with it. Divine discomfort is evidence that you are evolving. Your spirit is stretching, but your surroundings are not. And when the inner man expands faster than the outer world, friction is inevitable. That friction is not meant to break you, it is meant to move you. There is a reason you can no longer tolerate what you used to accept. The conversations feel shallow, the routine feels suffocating, the people feel familiar but misaligned. This is not arrogance, this is not rebellion, this is spiritual maturity. God is refining your appetite. He is teaching you that what once fed you can no longer sustain you. Chosen one, punishment produces shame. Divine discomfort produces clarity. Punishment pushes you away from God. Divine discomfort pulls you closer to purpose. If this were punishment, you would feel condemned. Instead, you feel restless. You feel alert. You feel a quiet urgency that says there is more and you cannot ignore it anymore. That is the voice of destiny knocking from the inside. God uses discomfort to detach you emotionally before he moves you physically. Because if he moved you suddenly, without internal separation, you would carry longing, regret, and divided loyalty into the next season. So, first, he allows the place to lose its sweetness. He allows the environment to lose its peace. He allows the routine to lose its meaning, not because it is evil, but because it is finished. Chosen one, many people mistake divine discomfort for failure and immediately try to escape it by numbing themselves. Distractions, overworking, entertainment, excuses, or forced gratitude. But discomfort is not something to escape, it is something to interpret. Ask yourself, what is God making uncomfortable in my life? And why? God never disturbs what he intends to maintain. He never agitates what he intends to keep permanent. If he is shaking it, it is because it cannot go with you. This is why forcing yourself to stay cheerful in a place God is trying to end will only exile, stew. You are not meant to make peace with what God has already outgrown in you. You are meant to listen. Divine discomfort is God saying, do not build here. It is God saying, do not unpack emotionally. It is God saying, this place was a classroom, not a residence. Chosen one, that the longer you ignore divine discomfort, the louder it becomes. What begins as mild dissatisfaction becomes frustration. What begins as frustration becomes resentment. What begins as resentment becomes spiritual numbness. Not because God is cruel, but because he is persistent. He will not allow you to slowly die in a place he only assigned you to briefly. You must understand this principle. God often ends seasons internally before he ends them externally. The outside may look the same, but inside you no longer belong here. That knowing is sacred. Do not betray it. The discomfort you feel is not weakness, it is sensitivity to divine timing. It is proof that your spirit is alive and responsive. Dead things don't feel uncomfortable, only living, growing things do. Chosen one, consider this. If you were meant to stay, God would give you peace to remain. Instead, he has removed the ease, he has removed the grace, he has removed the enthusiasm, not to punish you, but to redirect you. When God wants to bless you in a new way, he first makes the old way unbearable. This is why praying for comfort in a season of transition often leads to silence. God will not soothe what he intends to shift. He will not anesthetize the very pain that is designed to push you forward. Sometimes unanswered prayers are divine protection against delay. Do not mislabel divine discomfort as spiritual attack. Not everything uncomfortable is demonic. Some discomfort is directional. It is God's GPS recalculating your route because you have arrived at the end of usefulness in this location. Chosen one, if you stay where God has already removed his peace, you will start blaming yourself for what is actually divine instruction. You will think you are ungrateful, broken, or impatient, when in reality you are simply outgrowing the space. God is too wise to waste your next level by allowing you to remain satisfied at your current one. And hear this carefully, divine discomfort does not mean the place was wrong. It means the timing is complete. Some places are right for who you were, but wrong for who you are becoming. Honoring the past does not require you to live in it. You must stop asking, why am I uncomfortable? And start asking, what is God preparing me for? Because divine discomfort always precedes divine movement. It is the shaking before the shift, the stirring before the separation, the inner evacuation notice before the outward move. Chosen one, God is not punishing you, he is promoting you. But promotion always begins with displacement. The old seat must become uncomfortable before you are willing to stand and move to the next one. So do not resist the discomfort. Do not explain it away. Do not numb it. Honor it. Listen to it. Let it loosen your grip on what is familiar so your hands are free to receive what is next. Because the discomfort is not the problem. Staying despite it is. And when you finally move, when you obey without full explanation, you will look back and realize that the discomfort was mercy. It was God loving you too much to let you stay small, settled, and silent in a place that could no longer hold your destiny. Stagnation is not always loud. It does not always announce itself with obvious failure, chaos, or collapse. Sometimes stagnation hides behind routine, behind familiarity, behind the illusion of stability. It looks like being sensible. It sounds like waiting for the right time. But for the chosen one, stagnation after divine instruction is not neutrality, it is resistance. When God speaks, movement becomes obedience. Remaining still after that point is no longer patience, it is quiet defiance wrapped in reason. And this is where many miss it. They believe disobedience must look dramatic to be real. They imagine rebellion as shouting, running, or open refusal. But often, the most dangerous form of disobedience is simply staying put when God has already said, Go, chosen one. Understand this. God does not repeatedly tell you the same thing unless it matters. If you feel the instruction to move returning again and again through inner conviction, repeated confirmations, increasing discomfort, it is because delay is hosting you something. Heaven is not confused. Heaven is waiting on your response. There is a grace that rests on obedience and a grace that lifts when obedience is delayed. When that grace lifts, things do not always fall apart immediately, but they stop progressing. Effort increases while results decrease. Energy drains faster than it is replenished. You begin to feel tired without being fulfilled. That is the sign that the season has ended, but you have not moved with it. Stagnation is especially dangerous for the chosen one because you are designed to be led, not parked. God's favor flows through alignment, not attachment. The moment you cling to what God has finished using, you block the flow of what He is trying to release next. This is why obedience is not optional at higher levels. The more light you carry, the more costly delay becomes. What others can postpone without consequence, the chosen cannot. Where others can linger, you are required to move because your life is not just about you. Your obedience is tied to assignments, people, and outcomes beyond your awareness. Stagnation feels safe because it avoids risk. But safety outside of God's will is illusion. There is no protection in disobedience, only delay. And delay over time erodes clarity. You begin to second guess what you once knew clearly. You start negotiating with God. You ask for more signs, more reassurance, more comfort, when what is required is simply action. Chosen one, every time you delay obed. Irons, you strengthen fear and weaken faith. Faith grows through movement, not contemplation. God did not design trust to be built in theory. It is built in steps taken without full visibility. That is why the instruction often comes without details. If God gave you everything up front, you would move by logic instead of faith. Staying after God has spoken does something subtle but dangerous. It teaches your spirit that God's voice is optional. And once that belief settles in, you lose sensitivity. What once felt urgent begins to feel negotiable. What once felt clear begins to feel distant. This is how stagnation dulls spiritual perception. Understand this truth: obedience keeps your hearing sharp. The more quickly you respond, the more clearly you hear. Delay does not just postpone blessings, it interferes with discernment. Stagnation also creates spiritual frustration. You feel restless, but you cannot identify why. You pray, but the prayers feel heavy. You worship, but the connection feels distant. This is not because God has left you, it is because you are standing still while He is calling you forward. God never stands still. He moves in seasons, assignments, and timings. When you refuse to move with Him, the distance you feel is not abandonment, it is misalignment. Chosen one, do not confuse endurance with obedience. Endurance is required when God says stay. Obedience is required when God says move. Applying the wrong virtue to the wrong instruction creates unnecessary suffering. Many are enduring what God never asked them to endure. They are calling it strength when in reality it is fear of transition. Fear disguises itself as wisdom when you are called to move. It tells you to wait until conditions are perfect, resources are complete, and outcomes are guaranteed. But God does not operate by perfect conditions, He operates by faith alignment. Conditions align after obedience, not before it. Stagnation also affects momentum. Spiritual momentum is fragile. It is built through timely obedience. Every time you move when God speaks, momentum increases. Every time you hesitate, momentum slows. Eventually, you find yourself having to push for what once flowed effortlessly. Chosen one, if you are pushing harder but advancing less, examine obedience before effort. God never asked you to force what obedience would unlock. The tragedy of stagnation is not that nothing happens, it is that something could have happened but didn't. Opportunities pass quietly, connections expire unseen, doors close without noise, and later you look back and realize that what felt like waiting was actually loss. God does not chase us with deadlines, but seasons do expire. Assignments have windows, favor has timing, obedience delayed can become obedience denied. Not because God is cruel, but because movement is part of the instruction. This is why partial obedience is still disobedience, staying emotionally attached while physically present, agreeing mentally but resisting practically, saying yes with words but not yet with actions. Heaven responds to movement, not intention. Chosen one, stagnation does not always look like sin. Sometimes it looks like stability. But stability outside of God's timing is still misalignment. You can be morally upright and spiritually stagnant at the same time. God is not impressed by your ability to stay, He is pleased by your willingness to follow. Every level requires a new response. What worked before will not work now. What kept you safe then may be what limits you now. And God, in His mercy, will not allow you to remain productive in the wrong place forever. If productivity has slowed, if peace has lifted, if passion has faded, do not rebuke it, interrogate it. Ask what instruction you have delayed. Because for the chosen one, stagnation is not rest, it is a warning that movement has been commanded, a warning that staying is costing you alignment, a warning that obedience is overdue. And when you finally move without full clarity, without perfect security, you will feel it immediately, the return of peace, the surge of momentum, the restoration of clarity, not because the path is easier, but because you are finally aligned again. Stagnation ends the moment obedience begins. Movement is not a suggestion in the economy of faith, it is a requirement. Miracles do not respond to intention, they respond to alignment. And alignment is activated through motion. This is why God so oft and waits for you to take the first step before He releases the provision, the confirmation, the opening, or the breakthrough you have been praying for. Heaven is not withholding, it is waiting. Chosen one, understand this principle deeply. God funds motion, not hesitation. He does not pour resources into places you are meant to leave. He does not release favor into stagnation. The miracle is already prepared, but it is positioned ahead of you, not beneath your feet. You must move to meet it. This is where faith separates itself from hope. Hope wishes, faith walks. Hope says one day, faith says now. God honors faith because faith agrees with His timing. When God speaks, the timing shifts immediately, even if the environment does not reflect it yet. Movement is the language God responds to most clearly. Throughout every divine pattern, the instruction is always tied to an action. Step into the water, stretch out your hand, go to the place I will show you, leave what is familiar, walk around the wall. The miracle does not precede the movement, it follows it. Chosen one, waiting for certainty before moving, is not wisdom, it is fear dressed in logic. Certainty is the reward of obedience, not the prerequisite. God does not guide you with guarantees, He guides you with direction, and direction demands trust. This is why miracles often seem to suddenly appear after someone finally obeys. It was not sudden in preparation, it was sudden in manifestation. The moment alignment is restored through movement, what was held in reserve is released at once. You must understand that God designs provision to chase obedience. When you move in faith, resources begin moving toward you from places you cannot see. People you have never met are stirred. Opportunities begin aligning. Delays dissolve. Resistance weakens. But none of this activates while you are stationary. Chosen one, The reason movement feels risky is because you are crossing a threshold where reliance on self ends and reliance on God begins. Movement strips you of control. And that is exactly the point. God will not share authorship of your miracle. He requires your participation, not your management. Faith that does not move is belief without agreement. Agreement with God always expresses itself in action. If you truly believe God has spoken, your feet will testify before your mouth does. Movement also collapses time. What should take years can happen quickly once you step into alignment. This is why delayed obedience creates delayed outcomes. God is not slow, He is precise. He moves when you move. Chosen one, stop assuming that preparation is complete only when fear is gone. Fear often remains until after obedience. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is movement in spite of it. God does not remove fear to prove His presence. He proves His presence by meeting you once you move. This is why the instruction often feels unreasonable. If it made perfect sense, it would not require faith. Go. D positions miracles just beyond logic, so that when they manifest, there is no confusion about the source. Movement also unlocks divine assistance. Angels, helpers, and favor are often assigned to locations, not intentions. They are waiting in the place of obedience. When you remain where you are, you remain out of range of help that has already been dispatched. Chosen one, there are blessings you cannot pray into existence. They are triggered by action, not repetition. Prayer aligns your heart, movement aligns your life. This is why God often answers prayer with instruction instead of explanation. You asked for breakthrough, and He said, go. You asked for clarity, and He said, move. You asked for provision, and He said, step. Because the answer is not in more understanding, it is in obedience. Movement is also a declaration of trust. It tells heaven, I believe you more than I believe what I see. And heaven responds to that declaration with speed. Chosen one, miracles are not random events, they are responses. They respond to faith in motion. When you move, you create spiritual momentum. Momentum attracts acceleration. Acceleration produces sudden results. This is why staying still keeps you stuck in the same cycle. The cycle breaks when movement begins. God does not bless comfort zones. He uses them temporarily and then calls you out of them. Movement requires release. You cannot move forward while holding on to what God is asking you to leave. Every step forward requires a letting go behind you. This is not loss, it is exchange. The reason some miracles feel delayed is because movement has been partial. You moved physically, but not emotionally. You moved externally, but not internally. Heaven responds to full alignment, not partial compliance. Chosen one, when God says move, He is not testing your strength, He is testing your trust. Trust is proven through action, and once trust is proven, provision is released. Movement also sharpens vision. Clarity often comes after obedience, not before. As you move, details emerge, direction adjusts, steps refine. God does not give you the whole map because He wants your dependence, not your independence. This is why faith must be lived forward, not understood backward. When you look back, it will make sense. When you are moving, it will require trust. Chosen one, the miracle you are waiting for is already moving toward you, but it cannot reach you while you remain where you are. Distance still matters in the spiritual realm. Alignment still matters. Position still matters. When you move, you step into range of what God has prepared. So stop asking God to move while you remain still. God has already moved. He is ahead of you. The invitation is not for Him to come back to where you are, but for you to rise and follow. Movement activates miracles. Obedience releases acceleration, and faith becomes visible the moment your feet begin to move. There are places in life that are appointed, not permanent. NT. They serve a purpose, deliver a lesson, shape a character, and then quietly expire. The danger is not in entering such places. The danger is in trying to remain in them after their assignment is complete. Many people confuse gratitude with permanence. They believe that honoring where they came from requires staying there. But God never designed preparation to become a prison. Chosen one, your previous location, whether physical, emotional, relational, or spiritual, was not meant to be your final destination. It was a training ground, not a throne. It was where you learned discipline, endurance, humility, and dependence. But what trains you is not always what sustains you. And if you attempt to live where you were meant to learn, you will slowly outgrow the very environment that once protected you. God uses places the way He uses seasons. Winter prepares the soil, spring releases growth. No farmer prays for winter to last forever. Preparation without transition becomes stagnation, and God is too intentional to allow you to remain in a place that has already given you everything it was designed to give. This is why staying too long begins to feel uncomfortable. The place itself has not changed, but you have. Your capacity has expanded. Your perception has sharpened. Your assignment has matured. And now, what once felt sufficient feels restrictive. This is not ingratitude, it is alignment. Chosen one, preparation places often demand endurance. You survive there. You learn to function under pressure. You develop resilience. But sustaining places are where you thrive, where strength replaces strain, where fruit replaces survival. If you try to thrive in a place designed only to train you, you will exhaust yourself. God never intended you to live forever in survival mode. Survival is a season, not a lifestyle. If everything in your life still requires excessive effort just to maintain, it may be because you are living past the expiration date of that environment. Preparation places teach you who you are without resources. Sustaining places show you what God can do with resources. Both are necessary, but they are not interchangeable. Chosen one, many miss their next level because they develop emotional loyalty to a season that was meant to be temporary. They say, "This place made me." Yes, but it was never meant to keep you. Training grounds are not permanent residences. You do not build mansions in the wilderness, you pass through it. God is not dishonoring your past by moving you forward. He is honoring the work that was done there by graduating you from it. Graduation is not rejection, it is confirmation that the lesson was learned. This is why the grace that once made things easier has lifted. Not because God has withdrawn His favor, but because favor has moved forward. God's grace flows with assignment. When the assignment changes, grace relocates. Chosen one, if you feel like you are forcing progress in a place where things once flowed nature, Ali, that is a sign the place has shifted from preparation to limitation. God will not allow you to remain effective in the wrong location forever. He will reduce productivity to provoke movement. Preparation places are often marked by struggle. Sustaining places are marked by alignment. Struggle builds strength, alignment multiplies results. If you remain in struggle after strength has been built, you are misusing what God developed in you. You must stop measuring faithfulness by how long you stay. Faithfulness is measured by obedience, not endurance. Staying when God says move is not loyalty, it is fear of transition. Chosen one, you cannot keep using yesterday's environment to support tomorrow's calling. What got you here will not take you there. God never upgrades the old place to fit the new you, He relocates you. This is why attempts to fix the old environment fail. You try to adjust relationships, routines, systems, and expectations, but nothing fully works. Because the issue is not the condition of the place, it is the assignment of the place. Its role in your life has ended. Preparation places are often isolating. They strip distractions, they refine focus, they humble you. Sustaining places expand influence. They introduce connection, they release increase. You cannot remain hidden and be revealed at the same time. Chosen one, the reason God sometimes removes people from your life when you are transitioning is not cruelty, it is clarity. Not everyone who was as signed to your preparation is assigned to your manifestation. Carrying the wrong relationships into the next season creates unnecessary friction. You must understand God never wastes seasons. If He moves you, it is because the investment is complete. He is not abandoning the work, He is deploying it. Staying in preparation too long can actually delay purpose. You keep rehearsing lessons instead of applying them. You keep training instead of building. And eventually, training without execution becomes insecurity. Chosen one, humility is learned in preparation. Authority is exercised in destination. If you try to exercise authority in a place designed to humble you, you will feel constrained. God separates seasons to protect your growth. This is why your spirit resists staying. It is not rebellion, it is readiness. Readiness always seeks expression. God never asks you to downgrade your calling to preserve comfort. He asks you to upgrade your obedience to match your capacity. Preparation places shape you, sustaining places reward you. You honor preparation by moving when it is complete. The danger is not that the place is bad, the danger is that it is finished. And when God finishes a place in your life, staying becomes disobedience, not devotion. You are not being ungrateful for leaving, you are being faithful for moving. What prepared you cannot contain you, what trained you cannot reward you, what shaped you cannot sustain you. And the moment you accept that movement, T becomes not loss, but alignment with the next phase of God's design for your life. Obedience is not slow in the kingdom of God. It is instant alignment with divine instruction. The moment obedience occurs, invisible systems begin to rearrange themselves on your behalf. Time compresses, resistance weakens, paths open that logic could never predict. This is what happens when obedience meets purpose, acceleration is released. Chosen one, God does not move at human speed, he moves at divine speed. And when you obey promptly, you step into that speed. What should have taken years suddenly unfolds in months. What was delayed for seasons begins to flow effortlessly, not because God changed his mind, but because you finally aligned with what he had already decided. Delayed obedience produces delayed momentum. Immediate obedience produces sudden advancement. Acceleration is not chaos, it is precision multiplied by trust. God knows exactly where to place you, who to connect you with, and when to release increase. But he will not accelerate you while you remain hesitant. Hesitation keeps you bound to natural timelines. Obedience moves you into supernatural ones. Chosen one, when God says move, he is not merely changing your location, he is changing your speed. The old place required endurance, the new place releases efficiency. The old season demanded survival, the new season produces momentum. This is why obedience often feels urgent. Urgency is not pressure, it is timing. God knows Hen windows are open. He knows when opportunities are aligned. He knows when conditions are favorable in the unseen. Your role is not to analyze the window, but to step through it. Obedience collapses waiting periods. You are no longer in the almost phase. You enter the now phase. This is why those who obey quickly often seem to leap ahead without explanation. It is not favoritism, it is alignment. Chosen one, acceleration is not reward for perfection, it is response to surrender. God accelerates those who trust him enough to move without needing full control. Control slows you down. Surrender speeds you up. This is why partial obedience cannot produce full acceleration. You cannot drag one foot in the old season and expect momentum in the new one. Acceleration requires full commitment. When you move completely, heaven responds completely. God accelerates to compensate for lost time, not time you wasted, but time you were required to wait. Seasons of preparation are often long and hidden. Acceleration is how God redeems those silent years. He does not owe you explanation, he restores through speed. Chosen one, when obedience is delayed, fear gains leverage. When obedience is immediate, fear loses authority. Fear thrives in indecision. Acceleration thrives in action. This is why clarity often arrives after obedience. God does not explain what acceleration will look like beforehand, because explanation would reduce trust. When things begin to move quickly, you realize the hesitation would have cost you access. Acceleration is also protection. God moves you quickly out of places that would drain you if you stayed longer. He knows when lingering would expose you to unnecessary resistance, so he accelerates you beyond what could harm you. Chosen one, obedience shifts you from striving to flow. Striving means pushing against resistance. Flow means moving with alignment. Acceleration happens when resistance disappears, not because the path is easy, but because it is correct. God does not accelerate everyone. He accelerates the obedient, not the talented, not the gifted, not the qualified. Obedience outruns qualification every time. This is why some with less experience move faster than those with more. Experience builds skill. Obedience unlocks favor. Favor shortens distance. Chosen one, acceleration does not mean you skip character. Character was formed in preparation. Acceleration means you skip unnecessary struggle. God does not waste effort. Once character is established, struggle is no longer required to produce growth. This is why when you obey, things line up quickly. People cooperate, delays disappear, doors open with ease. You feel carried rather than pushed. That is acceleration, but acceleration requires responsiveness. Heaven moves at the speed of your yes. Every time you hesitate, momentum slows. Every time you obey, momentum increases. Obedience also positions you correctly. Acceleration without position is dangerous. God AC accelerates you into alignment, not away from it. He knows exactly where you belong. Chosen one, acceleration feels uncomfortable because it stretches capacity. You must grow quickly to hold what is coming. This is why God does not accelerate you before you are ready. When acceleration comes, it confirms readiness. Do not fear speed, fear stagnation. Speed under God's direction is safe, stagnation under your own control is risky. Acceleration also silences doubt. When things move quickly, you no longer have time to overthink. Momentum replaces analysis. Action replaces anxiety. Obedience drowns out fear. Chosen one, when God accelerates you, others may not understand. They will say it happened too fast. But they did not see the years of obedience, restraint, and preparation that made speed possible. Acceleration is not skipping steps, it is compressing them. God fits more progress into less time. This is why obedience must be immediate. Speed requires timing. Missed timing cannot always be recovered. God's mercy allows new opportunities, but alignment allows original ones. Chosen one, obedience unlocks a pace that human planning cannot achieve. When you move, God moves faster. When you delay, God waits. Not because he cannot act, but because acceleration without obedience would damage you. The moment you obey, you feel it internally first. Peace returns, clarity sharpens, confidence rises. These are signs that acceleration has been activated. God is not slow. He is waiting for agreement. And agreement is not spoken, it is demonstrated. Obedience is the switch, acceleration is the response, and when you move at God's instruction, time itself begins to work in your favor.